So welcome everyone to this poetry workshop on experimental poetry with our esteemed workshop leader, Nikki Fragala Barnes. She is an experimental poet and participatory installation artist. An arts activist, Barnes centers material works on accessibility, land-based public histories, and the poetics of place, including monuments and multilingual translated works. An independent editor and curator, Barnes served as the poetry editor and editor-in-chief of Obra Artifact, a literary journal of experimental works, before joining the editorial collective for the Journal of Interactive Technology and Pedagogy. Her Barnes has exhibited and performed works at the Orlando Museum of Art in Orlando, Florida, the Atlantic Center for the Arts in New Smyrna Beach, and the Liminal, Valencia, Spain. Her work is also held in private collections internationally. She is earning a PhD in text and technology while teaching poetry writing at the University of Central Florida. And I'm just really very pleased and excited to present Nikki to you tonight. So thank you so much for being here with us, Nikki.
I am so glad. Thank you all for having me. This is my favorite way to spend a Friday with all you fun poetry friends. I'm going to share my screen with you. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that Zoom is weird and unexpected things sometimes happen when we're all on technology. Hopefully my internet will remain stable, but please, let me know if you can't hear me anymore. Also, there's a chat box. Please use the chat. There is a way to raise your hand. You can actually raise your real hand if you want to, add in a comment or a question. You can mouse over the 3 little dots on your little Zoom box. Both Ruth and I will be watching as, if you want to add something in, please, be part of the conversation. You not need to wait until the end to, hoping to show you some really cool, exciting things that will make you like blow your minds a little bit and want to say things. It's super nice and lovely to see some familiar faces. So thank you for warming up this space for me, and such a great welcome. So I'm going to share my screen and you'll see we're going to kind of go into Zoom world for a minute. Okay. So we're all here together. This is Experimental Poems and Poets with me. This is what we're going to work on tonight together. The first thing is going to be a little bit what I call a garden walk. So sorry about that. That is the one weird thing that happens when I live in a Mac world. So let me bring everything back. Okay. So what, somebody just tried to call my phone, and so all of my technology went a little crazy. So let's start that again. Okay. So we'll first do the garden walk. We'll talk about, get to know each other for a little bit, and then get to know Ian Hamilton Finley's work. The second thing is we'll talk about spaces, silence, and scores. And then we'll do a little sandboxing, and each of you will kind of dive into some other experimental work and also maybe do a quick draft of your own. And then we'll talk about some resources at the end. So you know a little about me already. This is where to find me in the social world. But I would really love to hear a little more about you. So let's do a quick round. I'm going to call on you if you feel like sharing. Please say, pass if you aren't able to, or remain silent. Let us know your name, what you love to write, and where you're zooming in from. Ruth, would you like to begin?
Yes. I'm Ruth Van Alstein, and I am from Jacksonville, Florida.
Doc Janning.
I am Doc Janning. I am the inaugural Poet Laureate of the city of South Euclid, Ohio. And I ran an ekphrastic poetry workshop for the North Florida Poetry Hub.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Mr. Howard Moon.
I'm located in Summerfield, Florida, which is south of Ocala and north of Orlando. So I'm loving the Zoom environment. I have 4 poetry books out there. I've got one sitting ready to go, but I'm going to wait on it a little bit, and I'm working on another one. And I've also written a zombie flash fiction book. So I like to write, I love putting, as I like to say, words on paper. So as long as I'm getting to put words on paper or on the computer, I'm happy. So I'm glad to be here tonight.
Thank you so much. Nuala?
Yes, my name's Nuala Moran, and I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Victoria?
My name is Victoria Dim. I'm from Tampa, Florida. I have an MFA in creative writing. I have 2 chapbooks published, 1 large manuscript, 3 rejections so far. And I just finished another chapbook, which I'm going to be sending out this month. I'm also an improv artist. I've done installations in art museums with acting as well as poetry. I'm also a storyteller, and I'm doing a story in April for FST. I like to mix media. The only thing I've ever done that I think is experimental was some blackout poetry. And that's not when you drink and then you fall down, but
I know.
erase your poetry. But I'm super excited about this workshop, and super excited to get to know everyone here.
Thank you. And let us have some fun together. Okay. I am not going to show you some of my work right now. If you want to hang around after, I'm happy to share some with you, but I want to dive into some other people's awesome things and kind of move into some real exciting stuff. So the first thing I want to share with you is Ian Finley Hamilton's work, which you might be familiar with. He passed away in 2006, and he did this incredible garden. So can you see 1,000 images on my screen? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. So this is what it looks like. Carol Ann has a little bit of an advantage because she's seen this work before. This is such an exciting piece of work. It's in Edinburgh. You can go there and walk through it and get lost and inspired all at the same time. And it is literally concrete poetry, as concrete as it gets, because it's made out of concrete in a lot of different places of the garden. It's a huge area. There's text on many objects. He believed you could walk through a book. So just taking a look at this, is super exciting and inspiring to see what's possible with text, with material, with landscape. He believed that the work itself was a book and that it would change over time. And he was co-creating with the landscape, with the elements, and that things would wash away and things would appear in a literally organic situation. Please go and see it if you ever get a chance to go to Edinburgh when we're allowed to leave our homes again. It's so beautiful. So,
Nikki, can we see individual pieces bigger sized?
I'm happy to show you a couple more. Yeah, they're so great. There is a website for it, like a main website called, the work is called Little Sparta, but if you search for Hamilton Finley, as you can see in my search bar, it all comes up. But the official website is not as useful a tour as looking at all these thumbnails. So like this is so
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Where's the city? Which state is it in?
This is in Edinburgh in Scotland.
Scotland, thank you.
This is another one of my favorites. Where is it? Here it is.
Oh my.
There's a lot of Latin and Greek in here as well. I think I can maybe just.
Is this a picture of him? One of
Yes,
those?
this is him on the property. And it is now a trust and they are, it's maintained like into posterity, but you can see that objects are amazing. And what I want you to get a chance to get a taste for tonight is that where your poetry happens can be as important as what is happening with your poetry. So let's check out some other awesome work. This is Spaces, Silences, and Scores. So an incredible poet who is in Seattle, you may be familiar with her work. Her name is Amaranth. She has done some experimental work. Check this out. So what I wanted you to see in Amaranth's work is the book looks kind of like QR codes, which you may be familiar with. I have a copy of it. You can get it yourself. And when you open the pages, these interesting codes have to be used with an app and then appears on the screen, her awesome text. But it was created with Flash. So you have to use some pretty interesting tech to get it to work again because Flash is no longer supported online. So what the word I want to introduce you with Amaranth's work is asemic, and you may be familiar with the root word SEM that comes from, same as semiotics for symbols, meaning. And you have here the experience of working with writing that possibly cannot be read. There are, she calls this work a digital pop-up book, and you can see how the text comes to life on the screen. There's a lot possible with coding and programming. And this book is itself a conversation between page and screen. So there's a character P and a character S that are having a poetic conversation about the tension that is between page and screen. I'm going to share with you all of these links later so you can like dive deeper into their work. But I'm kind of moving through it with like little samples because I want you to encounter some different work. And also some of you probably already know some of these folks, so I don't want to dwell on them too much.
Nikki,
Yes.
could you spell asemic?
Yes. It's the root word is SEM right in the middle. So it's an asemic means like it can't be read. So it's ASEMIC. So it's not semic. There is, I wonder if I can do, if I have screen sharing, can I do the whiteboard? I do not have a whiteboard option on here. I do not. There's a poem that is my favorite of all time. I'm going to search for it really fast so you can see it. Here it is.
Nikki, I can go in my settings and do the whiteboard if you
It's okay.
want.
It'll come right up. This is it right here. This poem was written in 1954. I wish I could say that I could come up with something this incredible. It is called Silencio, certainly Spanish for silence. And it is written, as you can see laid out here, with a space in the center. So just amazing, such an amazing work, because if you were going to read this poem out loud, to voice this poem is to place it in tension with its meaning, right? Because we're saying the word silencio, so we are no longer silenced. I was presented this poem when I first was encountered it. I was given this poem and told to read it out loud to present it. It was an extremely like frustrating experience, but also really exciting and wonderful to see what's possible with silence and with open space in our work. So not only to consider actually writing on concrete or gardening as poetry, but also how we use the space on the page to emphasize our meaning, to frustrate our meaning, to invite our reader in. I just can't believe that this poem exists in the world and it's so freaking beautiful. I'm so glad I got to share it with you tonight. The other person whose work I want to share with you is Allison Knowles, and she writes scores. Allison's work was written as a way to have, she believed in the action of the poem, the space that the poem existed in when the poem was a live, living thing, and the person, the poet, the performer, the reader, all of those roles converge. So she would present, she was in New York. I'm sure some of you are familiar with her work. Many of her works have been recorded. You will have so much fun Googling her. She began, her first work was called Make a Salad. And she would actually make a salad, usually on some kind of large tarp in the room. And then all of the people there would eat the salad. And she had a pretty typical American home life, but she really resisted living only as a housewife and wanted to like encounter people, encounter creativity, and inspire that action, that space of where meaning and text and performance and community all bring a text to life. It's so cool, right? She's done so many of these scores. So they sort of read almost like, she identifies it as musical performance, but you can, you know, call them recipes. It's really wonderful. So I hope that like, that'll be one of the forms you consider writing a score in our little mini workshop space tonight. So these are 6 different writers, poets that are working today. Monica, her work is visual, and she often uses diagrams, even that look sometimes like a science textbook. Tracy Morris is a sound poet, and she's also a scholar and professor, and she roots her work in how our vocalizations actually come before meaning. So if we're inspired or scared of something and we have that "oh" response, that "oh" is really pre-language, but it is the great "oh" of poetry as well. And she works and expands in all the range of what is possible with the voice. She does a lot of video work as well. Duna Mayora is working in visual spaces as well, also a semic. So you'll see in her work, it sometimes doesn't look like language or words. She uses symbols to represent language sometimes. Sam's work is also a semic, and also he works in sort of prose poems, but they're kind of these blocks of text. Jennifer Sperry Steinorth actually has an incredible book that's coming out. I think it actually maybe is out for pre-order. That's called a graphic poem. It almost looks like, comics, but not really. She also works with erasure, which one of our poets tonight talked about, blackout poetry. And Carol Ann also said she's working in that as well, where you take a page that already exists in a printed text and black out the words until a poem arises from the words that remain. And Rosa Alcala also works with voice and sound poetry and also prose poems. She's also a translator, and she translates the work of Cecilia Vicuña. So in the chat, I dropped a document. If you scroll up in the chat box, you'll see a document that says Sandbox. And then there's also a link to it. And it has samples of work from all of those people that I just shared with you, because I kind of blasted through them quickly instead of clicking on their name and going through a whole tour with you. And what I would love for you to do, I'm going to set up some breakout rooms. I think with 3 people in them, we'll try. And you have to scroll up in the chat box all the way to the beginning of the chat box. And you'll see there's a file or a link. Yeah.
Not sure
Okay.
if we can do breakout rooms.
No, I don't see a link either, or a file.
Copy it and I'll send it out to you again. There you go. Try that.
Okay, there's a link.
Okay. So, this would be a great chance for you to take a quick look at some of these awesome pieces. Take a look at the titles, the shapes. Really, the idea of experimental poetry is to allow yourself to be playful and to give your work the freedom to kind of trouble itself a little bit, you know, to let that frustration be there, let the tension be there. When I'm trying to figure out where to begin with something, that is exactly where I begin, is where I am. And I'll write, or I'll draw a map of me sitting at my desk, or where I am, in space or in town, or where I am with a problem. So maybe start with where if you're having trouble getting started. But the first time I wrote a poem like this, I was given like 2 minutes to write one. So you're in good company with like the stress and generative pressure here, okay? So let me see if I can maybe send you into a room, but I might not be able to. I'm not sure if I can. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have breakout rooms because this is just a
Okay.
this is just like a basic account.
That's awesome. That's great.
Basic.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my PowerPoint screen up again to kind of quiet everybody's screens. And I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to write a crazy experimental poem. Please take a look at the awesome handout that I gave you. And then if you're feeling extra brave, we'll share some. Okay, so I'm going to share my PowerPoint so everybody's faces will go quiet. Okay. 7 minutes starting now. I'll write with you. That wasn't there before. So thank you very much. That is super wonderful. So here is your chance to, am I sharing my screen still? Hello, okay. To share your work if you feel like it. You have a super supportive audience, which is not always the case when we're sharing new work. So if you're brave, unmute yourself and speak out with your little experiment sketches.
Hi,
I'm
this
ready.
Yay.
Hi, this is Victoria. And so for about 3 minutes, I was sweating. And then I thought, okay, what do I usually sweat when I'm writing poetry? And I sweat punctuation. So I wrote a poem called Punctuation, and it is only punctuation. So it starts with the first line is quotation marks. The second line is an exclamation point, a colon.
Can we see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to do spacing differently.
Oh, nice.
And of course, it ends in a question mark.
Of course it does. So when I do workshops on Zoom, because we can't really clap for each other, we go all together and we all clap on 3. 1, 2, 3. Yay.
Thank you.
More. Donna's is in the chat, by the way, if you can see her work there. Who else is ready?
Andrew? Andrew?
Hello? Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time, so just share. Tell us your work.
I started just kind of gluing things to paper. You said start where you were, and my ink pen ran out of ink, so I stuck it onto the page. and then started writing about who says you have to go forward, and begin where you are and things like that, just written around it. It was kind of fun. Enjoyed that.
Love ink and pens. That was excellent. Andrew, did you?
Yes, please, if I may.
Oh,
My poem, I cannot show you my poem, but I can tell you what it looks like. It's a blank page. And I have explanatory notes. Usually they say poetry is not real work if it needs explanatory notes, but I did tell them anyways. My work is called Space. Space is odorless, colorless, matterless. You look at space and we usually visualize it as black, but it's not black. It just lacks anything. It is empty. If you stare into space, you don't know if you are looking 10 inches into it, 90 miles into it, or 240 billion trillion light years into it. They all appear to be the same. Now in my space, there was a cursor, so I have to explain the cursor. It's just a computer page, so there was a cursor in there. You will experience in my space, as I depicted in my experimental poem, a cursor. That is the only thing visible in space. Things that are not physical matter, but of conceptual matter. Physical objects, metaphysical objects, the ideas that we experience in real life, although they do not comprise physical matter. Such are the ideas of beauty, strength, energy, syncopation, pleasure, feelings, thoughts, ideas, and love. That's the poem.
You. Let's do our one clap for Andrew and Shuda. More?
All right. So anyone who wants to stay is welcome to stay.
I have a question.